Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Jayo Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Jayo Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai, Shri Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Good morning to everyone. So we are reading this morning from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 13, entitled Dhṛtarāṣṭra Quits Home, text 57. Please repeat after me. Saha va adya tanāt rājan parataḥ pañcame ahani kalevaraṁ hāsyati svam tat cha bhasmī-bhaviṣyati sava adyatanād rājan sava adyatanād rājan parataḥ pañcame hani parataḥ pañcame hani kalevaram hāsyati svam kalevaram hāsyati svam tacha bhasmī-bhaviṣyati tacha bhasmī-bhaviṣyati sava adyatanād rājan parataḥ pañcame hani kalevaram hāsyati svam tacha bhasmī-bhaviṣyati. Prabhus. Mataji. Saha, he, va, in all probability, adya, today, tanāt, from, rājan, O king, parataḥ, ahead, pañcame, on the fifth, ahani, day, kalevaram, body, hāsyati, shall quit, svam, his own, tat, that, cha, also, bhasmī, ashes, bhaviṣyati, will turn into. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. O King, he will quit his body most probably on the fifth day from today, and his body will turn to ashes. Nārada Muni's prophecy prohibited Yudhiṣṭhira Mahārāja from going to the place where his uncle was staying, because even after quitting the body by his own mystic power, Dhṛtarāṣṭra would not be in need of any funeral ceremony. Nārada Muni indicated that his body by itself would burn to ashes. The perfection of yoga system is attained by such mystic power. The yogi is able to quit his body by his own choice of time and can attain any planet he desires by turning the present body into ashes by self-made fire. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jayo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Go Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So one of the episodes in the Srimad Bhagavatam is Dhṛtarāṣṭra quits the home, and it's very interesting that describing the stories of Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam being called Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya. It is the explanation of Mahabharata stories from the point of view of bhakti. So we'll try to see the explanation of Śrīla Vyasadeva of the same incidents from the Bhagavat platform or the devotional service. These kind of episodes in Srimad Bhagavatam, they are incidental episodes called prakari. The main episodes being called patākam. Patāka are the episodes which are main in the plot, in a tradition of making drama in India from Natya Shastra and Vishnu Dharmotar Purana. Is explained that we have different kinds of elements or constituents of plot of drama, and these episodes are incidental. They are not the one which are described in the main purpose of drama, because the main purpose of drama of Srimad Bhagavatam is to explain the glories of Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees. So these stories, like Dhṛtarāṣṭra quits home, they are prakari, they are incidental episodes. So what happened in this episode is that after Vidura came back to Hastinapur after his pilgrimage, then he convinced Dhṛtarāṣṭra that he should quit the home, and soon after Dhṛtarāṣṭra along with excuse me, what is the wife? Can you remember? Gandhari, yeah. Gandhari, chased Gandhari. They left the home along with Vidura. So in times after that, then Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira was inquiring from residents of royal palace what happened actually to them. And he couldn't find the answer, and finally he asked the Sanjay, the secretary of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, what happened actually. And he started to explain, and at that moment Nārada Muni have arrived and explained actually to Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira what happened to his uncle, aunt, and Vidura, who is another uncle as well. And he explained that they went to north on the southern side of a Himalaya and performed austerities in Saptasrota location, etc. But many things are there to be revealed from the pacification of Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira by Nārada Muni. So when Nārada Muni came, all Pandavas have stood up and offered the proper obeisances and proper reception of the guest. It is said pratyutaya means standing up, and abhyukshana, washing the feet, etc. And then Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira started to inquire what happened to my uncle. And we can see here the nature of a devotee and a hero, that although he was so much harassed by his uncle Dhṛtarāṣṭra, he is still asking for his benefit. And he is even saying that when we were left alone with our father, Pandu, they are the ones who took care of us, and look what we are actually did. We have killed all of their sons. So that is the honest and noble Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira, always thinking for the benefit of others. Obviously, to be on that level, to act in that way, we cannot be on material platform. And all of us have some familiar incidents when we cannot forget so easily things. And only because of the power of devotion and Atma-vidya, science of self-realization, we are able to act for the benefit of another person. So Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira was also acting in that way. And although he made kind of an inquisition, he was inquiring, the answers of Nārada Muni are starting with pacification. He's saying actually, similarly like Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, ma shuchaha. Shuchaha is lamentation. So he's telling him, do not lament. You are inquiring actually, but you are lamenting actually. That is your real state of mind. Because he's not just inquiring for the sake of knowing, but he's inquiring for the sake of benefiting these people. And because of familial affection, sneha, he is disturbed. And so now Nārada Muni is trying to pacify him. So Nārada Muni said, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. So, very interestingly to see the science of Atma-vidya or Bhakti Yoga, from psychological perspective, that although he understood that his mind is disturbed, he didn't try to explain him and understand him and all his problems in life. He actually taught him science of self-realization, Atma-vidya, and from that all problems are resolved. So that is the real psychology that we are trying to bring person to the level of Brahma Bhuta, and then he by his own consciousness will be able to resolve his situation and problems in life. It's completely opposite than modern psychology, which is trying to analyze the different causations of lamentation and anxiety, stress and miseries, etc. So, in opposite, in Vedic tradition, we see that we have self-referential knowledge. Education is based not only to instruct student, but also to illuminate the student. So it's illumination by knowledge, by self-knowledge, not only instruction of knowledge. So therefore, in Vedic education, the person is not just trying to accumulate the knowledge, but the teacher is trying to evoke the knowledge within the student. And the proper student or learner will, through the faculty of consciousness, understand what is avidya, what is vidya, and etc. In that way, properly act. So it's quite different than modern perspective. And modern perspective is giving techniques how to resolve mental problems, but Vedic perspective we see that is first to realize what is the real identity of a living being, what is our real identification, and what is false identification, atma viparyaya. So in that way he is teaching him the psychology of atma vidya, because he himself is on that level. And furthermore, he is trying to explain that by giving one udaharana or example, parallelism, similarity between two objects. So he's saying, as a cow bound through the nose by a long rope is conditioned, so all human beings are bound by different Vedic injunctions and are conditioned to obey the orders of the Supreme. So he's giving the comparison with a cow who is bound through the nose with a long rope. And in the case of human beings, that bondage is Vedic injunctions. And Vedic injunctions are guiding human being to elevate himself. And later we're going to see how Dhṛtarāṣṭra, although he didn't have a proper character, being a human being, he was still elevating himself through the practice of yoga, because human being means actually elevation. We came to this position to be elevated, either to heavenly enjoyment, liberation, or finally devotion. So through practice of Vedic injunctions, karma yoga, jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, or finally bhakti yoga, human being is elevated. Otherwise, if someone is not elevating himself through these processes, he's not considered actually human in strict sense. He is considered as a tribal. So he's outside of his proper position, because human position means trying to at least imitate the position of spiritual world, being situated in self-consciousness, the real consciousness of living being, and that is the servant of the Supreme Lord. So if we are not on the level of bhakti devotion, then at least it is instructed that we should follow aparavidya or secondary processes like karma yoga, dhyana yoga, and jnana yoga. So Vedic injunctions are always to be performed. And he is giving also one another kind of comparison. As a player sets up and disperses his playthings according to his own sweet will, so the supreme will of the Lord brings men together and separates them. And in two next shlokas he is explaining this comparison. In all circumstances, whether you consider the soul to be an internal principle or the material body to be perishable, or everything to exist in the impersonal absolute, or everything to be an explicable combination of matter and spirit, feelings of separation are due only to illusory affection and nothing more. Therefore give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. You're now thinking of how they, who are helpless poor creatures, will exist without you. So basically he's telling him, in any consideration, in any situation, whether you think your family members to be just these bodies, or combination of matter and spirit, or just spirit, this familial affection, sneha, is just illusory. It is temporary, it's flickery, in that sense it is also illusory, and you are worrying about them because you are noble living being, you are king, you're trying to protect others, but you don't know actually, you forgot Atma Vidya, you don't know that everyone is dependent only on the Lord. So we are trying to protect living beings, creatures in this world, but we should know that all of living beings have actually relationship, sambandha with Supreme Lord actually directly. With us have only indirectly through matter, but with Lord they have directly through spiritual potencies. So we are not the one on whom living beings are dependent. They are dependent on the Lord. So in that way, the Nārada Muni is also showing the position of a preacher in this world, and him being engaged in the mission of the Lord. The position of preacher being not trying to, by his intelligence, acquire happiness or remove distress, but actually seeking liberation and helping others to be liberated from the illusory potency and from being covered. So, as devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we should acquire the same attitude, that we should not be disturbed by happiness and distress in this world and lament for the temporary illusory identification, our ones and other ones, and illusory family connection, but to help to everyone, to our family, society, community, by transcendental knowledge. Someone may think that this sneha is completely wrong, but prakrita sneha is wrong. Prakrita sneha being the materialistic affection for the body of our family members and society members. But there is aprakrita sneha, and it's very much appreciated for those who are highly elevated souls, rasikas, bhavukas, they can appreciate this. It is one of levels of prema, sneha, raga, anuraga, bhava, mahabhava, adiruddha mahabhava, etc. So all this is very much appreciated. So we should not think that in the practice of yoga, our emotions should be destroyed, because many times we made this mistake, and we just want to, because of frustration, renounce things, renounce family, renounce our occupation, and so-called surrender to Supreme Lord in fullness. So that may be dishonest, and in that way we are not progressing on the yoga ladder. So then furthermore, the Nārada Muni is explaining what is the destination of Dhṛtarāṣṭra, Gandhari and Vidura. So he's saying that the Dhṛtarāṣṭra have performed yoga and then have achieved Vijnanamaya level by that process. So yoga being the abhideya gyan, the knowledge of of the process, and the vijnana maya being the knowledge of the goals, the attainment which he achieved. So the Nārada Muni very interestingly explained things in terms of sambandha videya prayojana to Nārada Muni. So he first explained the connection of the living being with the Supreme Lord and his relation with the matter, then the process of yoga and what is achieved by yoga. So regarding the process of yoga, the Nārada Muni was explaining the whole process of Ashtanga yoga. But we should not think that there is many yogas, there is only one yoga, but different constituents of yoga we call in different names, because when they are looked from perspective outside of bhakti, but they are actually all elements of bhakti, because there is only one yoga, that is your connection with the transcendence, the Supreme Lord, and all others are just elements of that. The residents of the spiritual world, they, just like us, they use the senses, mind and intelligence to please Krishna, but we don't call it Buddhi Yoga, we call it Bhakti Yoga or Prema Bhakti. It's nothing else. But because for us as neophyte students, therefore the rishis and the acharyas have explained the yoga as a ladder. So the yoga as a ladder have different stages, but it's for our understanding, but from the perspective of bhakti, they are just elements of bhakti. So karma yoga being the action, the jnana yoga, the cognition or the yoga of knowledge, the dhyana yoga, meditation, and finally devotion is bhakti yoga. So the karma yoga deals with senses, engaging senses in connection with transcendence. Then jnana yoga engaging cognition, dhyana yoga meditation on transcendence, and bhakti yoga devotion. So we see the first three are actually very much external, and that the result of them is not complete. The karma yogi who is on level of nishkama karma yoga can achieve level of sat or brahman. Then the dhyana yogi, he can achieve the sat chit, which is the paramatma level, and the Sachitananda is achieved only by bhakti yoga, which is complete engagement. So the first three are just external engagement and purification of body, mind, and words. But only when they are engaged in bhakti, they get the real purpose. So it's not that in bhakti yoga we are not engaging our body, mind, and words, but we call it bhakti. So elements of all other yogas are included in bhakti. The karma yoga, we execute the bhakti yoga through the injunctions of Vedas, which is also used for karma yoga. It is also used for karma kanda. It's not different in externals. The puja, yagya, the different ceremonies are same in technical principles, same for karma yogi or bhakta yogi. Then jnana yoga, we are also studying knowledge, and for real knowledge is the knowledge of sambandha jnana, relationship between the living being, the Ishvara and Prakriti, and dhyana yoga, the engagement of the mind on meditation on the supreme form, but without the material emotion, without the sneha of Maharaj Yudhiṣṭhira, the bodily affection, because the dhyana yoga functions because it is the emotions are eliminated in that stage. Material emotions eliminated at that stage, and person can achieve the level of Shanta rasa at the best. So all yogas are included in bhakti, but because of terminology we can be confused, and Arjuna was also confused. We can see in a third chapter of Bhagavad Gita that he is confused, that first you're saying that knowledge is better than action, and then you are now asking me to fight. So then he explains him Buddhi Yoga, and Buddhi Yoga means the knowledge, the action with knowledge. So that's a complete yoga described in Bhagavad Gita, helping us to come to the level of bhakti. The Buddhi Yoga is many times explained by Krishna. So the performing duty means the action with knowledge about me, meditating on me, and for inner devotion to me. So we see the Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. So Krishna is not rejecting any of these systems, but gradually teaching Arjuna how to come to the level of bhakti. And most famously we think that when Krishna says sarva dharmam parityajya, that we should not perform our duties, we should not, means varnashram duties, we should not perform any of yogas, etc. But he is teaching us that we should not perform them for the sake of any material benefit. Because anyway they're going to be engaged in bhakti. What is bhakti without action? No service. What is bhakti without knowledge? No understanding of relationship, no cognition of someone's feelings, emotions, someone's needs. So what is bhakti without dhyana? Meditating on someone's satisfaction. Then what is bhakti? It's just some aloof sentiment. It's not realistic actually. So for residents of spiritual world, they engage all three within bhakti, and therefore because it's in completeness, we don't call it as a yoga ladder. But on the gradual process, we know that karma yoga is the one of the lowest, and then slowly progressing towards bhakti. But that ladder is there, but it's one yoga. It's not 4 yogas. It is finally one connection with the Supreme. And there is a difference slight difference in approach to the process. Ashtanga yoga is mechanistic till the highest levels, but the bhakti yoga starts with the highest in the beginning. So Ashtanga yoga, starting from beginning, yama niyama, the prohibitions and prescriptions, then progressing to asanas, the postures, then pranayama, the breathing exercise, pratyahara, withdrawing the senses, then dharana, focusing on one point. After the senses are controlled, we are able to focus on one point, otherwise our senses are creating so many sensations and mind is disturbed. And then dhyana, meditation on the form of the Lord. So this is where real internal sadhana, conscious sadhana is starting in Ashtanga yoga, and finally samadhi, the full absorption in the Supreme Lord. But we see that this is mechanic process which have the external sadhana, bahiranga sadhana, till the level of dhyana, and only the consciousness is fully involved in dhyana and samadhi. But in bhakti yoga, through the direct process of devotional service, we start to meditate on the Lord immediately. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So Smaranam is the one which corresponds with dhyana and samadhi finally. So, but the devotee, especially Kanishthadhikari, not being situated in the highest consciousness of Anandamaya, he still needs to follow rules and regulations, just yama and niyama. For us, yama and niyama are chanting the 16 rounds, niyama, and yama is following four regulating principles. In Ashtanga Yoga, yama prohibitions are satyam, ahimsa, asteya, brahmacharya, and aparigraha. So the person should refrain from not telling lie, so we should be truthful. Satyam, then should be satyam, ahimsa, non-violent, asteya, non-stealing, brahmacharya, not engage with body, mind, and words in lustful thoughts and actions. And finally, the aparigraha, non-possessivity, being not attached to material possessions. And then niyama, the things which person should follow is shocham, tapasya. Shocham, tapasya. Santosha means self-contentment, satisfaction with whatever easily comes and whatever we have. Then Swadhyaya, self-study, and Ishvara Pranidhan. Swadhyaya is self-study, and Ishvara Pranidhan, surrender to Supreme Lord. So, still we need to follow them in the beginning process of our bhakti. We are following in the similar way the process, and we see how these elements of yoga are same for practitioners. Ishvara Pranidhan very much indicates the bhakti, but is not direct. So the elements of Ashtanga Yoga are very useful for sadhakas, especially Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, to regulate our material emotions and purify us from attachments in this world. And it's also recommending Ishvara Pranidhan, the surrender to the Supreme Lord. So there, we should not think that they are actually contradictory. Then person is doing actions in devotional service which corresponds to asanas, and then pratyahara, withdrawing the senses from sense objects and from the sense enjoyment, which is yukta vairagya. Then later on meditating on the Lord, which is dhyana, and samadhi, being fully absorbed in the Lord. So all these processes are useful if they are connected with bhakti, and bhakti is actually the real power behind all yoga, because in order to do Ashtanga Yoga, which is in a complete form impossible in this age, we need to have some bhakti. You need to be very much dedicated. So that bhakti, it is indirect, but must be there. In order to do Jnana Yoga, you need to study scriptures given by Krishna and his devotees very hard. So that is also kind of indirect bhakti. And Karma Yoga, actions, you're still following the Vedic injunctions given by Krishna. And all this is very nicely described in Bhagavad Gita. So bhakti is the force behind all yogas. And bhakti is taking the support from other yogas, and it's supplemented by them. So the difference, the only difference we can say between Ashtanga Yoga and Bhakti Yoga is that in Ashtanga Yoga, person is mechanically disengaging his senses, but in Bhakti Yoga, he is devotionally engaging his senses. Sarvopadiveni bhuktam tat paratvena nirmalam hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchyate. So what is bhakti? Bhakti ruchyate hrishikena hrishikesha sevanam. So service by senses for the Hrishika Isha, for the Lord of all senses. So that's definition of bhakti, engaging the senses. Why engaging the senses? Because the highest level of yoga is to please the personal aspect of the Brahman, which is the Bhagavan. But for those who are not capable to practice bhakti, then mechanistic process is described so that they can engage themselves properly and later on not to take Krishna's pastime so easily. And that's the most important point. That person is, by purifying his senses in Purvanga karma, able to perceive Krishna's pastimes as transcendental, not material. Because we have Vyavahara Lila, Krishna's engagement with matter as a Virat Rupa, but we have also Paramartha Lila. And when someone who is contaminated by Kama, Krodha, Lobha, etc., he will see these pastimes as material. So then for them and for all of us, the scriptures are prescribing different yogas. And Krishna himself have prescribed yoga in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So in Bhagavad Gita, in 6th chapter, Dhyana Yoga, and in Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, whole Uddhava Gita, is describing different kinds of yoga, and finally the Ashtanga Yoga is also described. So if Krishna wouldn't consider this valuable, he wouldn't describe it. Just like Krishna gave so many Vedas with Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, Upasana Kanda, if he wouldn't consider this valuable, he wouldn't describe this. So all these Vedic injunctions are very much valuable for members of society, and we as devotees, we should know their real perspective and know how much we can engage them in our Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti for our purification, and finally achieve the real purpose of yoga, that is Sachitananda. We said that the goal which Dhṛtarāṣṭra achieved is Vijnana Maya, the level of differentiation between matter and spirit, the level of yogis, which is Satchit, the existence and the transcendental experience or knowledge, but the devotee, through the process of Bhakti Yoga, should achieve Sachitananda. So, along with Chit, which is the cognizance of the transcendence, the Supreme Lord and his devotees, he's also trying to please the Supreme Lord. So in that way, the complete achievement of yoga is there, Sachitananda, and that person is on Anandamaya level. If we can add, just for the end, that different kinds of devotees, in their progress, they are focusing on different aspects of yoga. The Kanishtadhikari is focusing on karma yoga, because of engagement of senses and trying to control his senses. Then Madhyamadhikari on Jnana Yoga, differentiation between matter and spirit, and dharmic and adharmic, vidya and avidya. And Uttamadhikari on Dhyana Yoga, meditating on the Supreme Lord. So also per our adhikar, we are engaged fully, we are engaging ourselves in yoga, but the real definition of yoga is seen only on the level of prema. On the level of prema, full yoga is achieved in love of Godhead, and that is actually real definition of bhakti. And bhakti means actually love, or devotional service in love of Godhead. Srila Prabhupada translates prema bhakti. So on that level, a person is spontaneously engaging himself. And interesting, on that level, yoga is more appreciated than yoga. So all of us are trying to engage ourselves in this connection with Krishna, and in trying to somehow meet him in yoga, but on transcendental level, our yoga is more appreciated. Separation from the Lord is more appreciated because evokes more deeper connection and more love in separation. The greatest examples are the gopis, manjaris, and wonderful, beautiful Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas who explained us all. So with this, I will thank you so much and ask, is there any question? Hare Krishna. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu, for a nice class. I wanted to inquire if Dhṛtarāṣṭra achieved love of Godhead, or he only achieved Vaikuntha, or he was elevated to Brahma-jyoti, or what happened to him at the end?
It's described in one of shlokas just after this. So, just for your confirmation, I will read. So, in this shloka, we have seen that he will quit body most probably in 5 days. The Nārada Muni being one of the greatest Jyotishis, he could predict like this. If you want to learn Yudhiṣṭhira from Nārada Muni, then you can read Nārada Samhita. It's not translated, but it's available in Nārada Purana as Yudhiṣṭhira. Just a second to find the exact. I'm not able to find, but he said, it's here. Dhṛtarāṣṭra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness. As a living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being free from the block sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky. So in Sanskrit he is saying, Vijñānātmani samyojya. So he achieved the level of Vijnana, Maya, which is the level of Brahman, or the level of Kaivalya, Samyojya, being perfectly fixed in that level. So he achieved the level of Brahman. So why he wasn't eligible to perform devotional service? Because he was offending Vaishnavas. He was offending Pandavas, and in that way he wasn't able to perform a bhakti yoga. So this incidental episode is to teach us also not to offend Vaishnavas, because we can see if we offend Vaishnavas, our bhakti yoga will become very mechanistic. We'll need to perform some of the purifications and will not have taste for devotional service. So this is one of the main lessons being behind. So I would say like that, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu, you mentioned that this about process of chanting, hearing and remembering, smaranam. So how they are interconnected, Prabhu? Can you elaborate on that?
Which ones?
Chanting, hearing and remembering. Sravanam, Kirtanam and Smaranam.
Vishnu Smaranam. How they are?
Interconnected.
Interrelated. The most important being the Smaranam in internal way. To always remember the Lord, never forget Him. Smartavya satam Vishnu vismartavyo na yatu chit. We should always remember the Lord, never forget Him. But for us not being able to do that, then Shravanam Kirtanam is preliminary. And not only preliminary just in chronological way, it's a complete process in itself. But we need to hear and speak about the Lord and glorify His holy name. So, and in that process, then remembrance will naturally come when mind is purified, because the holy name and Bhagavad Katha, Krishna Katha not being different from the Lord, our mind will be purified, and the natural tendency of the soul, sneha, affection for the Lord will come, and then we will be able to remember the Lord. So in beginning, this can be mechanical, bahiranga sadhana, but we should also cultivate antaranga sadhana, internal practices, because we see that there are devotees for 20, 30 years performing devotional service, but or maybe only as an external practice. They engage their senses, but their mind was not engaged. They were not able to engage their mind as per yukta vairagya in Daivi Varnashram, etc., and therefore their mind was not purified. So in Shravanam and Kirtanam, especially in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, the holy name is the most prominent and the most simple way, and by chanting the holy name we automatically remember the Lord. But also should also be the antaranga sadhana. Remember the Lord is not just mechanical, but it's also devotional and emotional. We try to please Him, because we said that Bhakti Yoga means Sachitananda, is not only Sat and Chit.
And also Prabhupada somewhere mentions that a sadhaka should hear for a long time for purification. Something is said. So can you comment on this, Prabhu? What is the value of hearing for a long time?
Yeah, it is hearing for a long time, but there is also sadhana krama, the steps of sadhana, and one of them being Shravana krama and Shravana hina krama. One being very unsteady, Shravana hina krama, and one Shravana krama being hearing regularly in chronological way of Krishna's pastimes. Is very important that we hear about Krishna in chronological way, and the Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that in that way the mind will be attracted to the pastimes. If we just hear some incidents of Krishna's pastime here or there, we will not have full picture of Goloka and Krishna's leelas with his devotees, and we will not be able to comprehend and meditate on them. So the sadhana should be done in proper way, Shravana sadhana in proper way, and then our mind will be attracted in creating so much enthusiasm, intrigue in pastimes, and naturally, it happens naturally, just like in this world you hear any rumor, immediately your mind will go there. So that's also true how personal knowledge is more higher than impersonal knowledge. Just hear anything about anyone, and you will see how mind is going there. And that's natural tendency even in spiritual world, that as soon as we hear about some intricacies of Krishna's relationship with other devotees, our mind is intrigued and attracted. So we want to achieve that. So for that we need to hear Krishna's pastimes, and Srila Prabhupada, being the highest psychologist, he gave us Krishna book. So we should read Krishna book.
Also, because of just like you mentioned that we should hear in chronology, so I think because of that, Prabhupada recommended that we should hear from the beginning, first canto, and then gradually progress.
Yes, definitely. Because
systematically,
because Bhagavatam is showing progress from Shraddha to Prema. In different cantos, is showing progress from Shraddha to Prema. In that way, also, on whatever level we are, we will face these attachments, these anarthas, and see how others have dealt with them, other devotees in the past, and what is the remedy, pratikriya for that. All right. Thank you, Prabhu. So, being 9 o'clock, we'll finish here. Thank you so much for your kind attention. Dhṛtarāṣṭra Srimad Bhagavatam ki